have a desire to serve others. Greenleaf was reacting to the turbulent times of the late 1960s and early 1970s, in which he felt was a deterioration in leadership in the United States. Greenleaf constructed 10 characteristics that made up a servant leader. These characteristics we'll explore through the stories and the historical context of integration and the dynamic relationship between Branch Rickey and Jackie Robinson. What it took these men to stamp out segregation in Major League Baseball could only be accomplished through deep moral commitments and a need to serve others through great servant leadership. Branch Rickey didn't integrate baseball on his own. He, like all great leaders, collaborated with others because he knew the importance of listening to a diverse audience of people who could help his cause. He worked closely with the African American community leaders in and out of Brooklyn, ministers, sociologists, and others like Dr. Robert M. Haig of Columbia University and Dr. Jose Seda of the University of Puerto Rico. These two scholars did research for Rickey on culture and the capabilities of people of color in Mexico and Cuba. Both countries played baseball, and many African American players played side by side with players of all races. Rickey's quest to integrate baseball began as early as 1943 when he came to the Brooklyn Dodgers. He had a fundamental belief that it was wrong to exclude people of color in baseball and other aspects of society. Rickey was more than just a baseball executive. He was a highly educated lawyer, a former college player and coach of both football and baseball, and a professional baseball player. One key experience in Rickey's life took place in 1903 while he was attending college and coaching for Ohio Wesleyan University. While on a road trip to South Bend, Indiana, the team, which included a player, Charles Tommy Thomas, a person of color, had reservations at the Hotel Oliver. When the team tried to check into the hotel, the clerk told Rickey that only whites were permitted at the Hotel Oliver. Rickey was extremely upset at this injustice, especially when Thomas told Rickey, "Maybe I should go home." Rickey said, no, we'll be all right. Rickey was then able to convince the hotel clerk to allow Thomas to sleep on a cot in his room. Charles Thomas sat on a cot in his room crying, pulling one hand with the other and saying, "God, Mr. Rickey, if only I could change the color of my skin." Later, reflecting on this experience, to Arthur Mann, Later reflecting on this experience with Arthur Mann in a Life magazine article in 1957, Rickey admitted, "I never felt so helpless in my life." Rickey himself cited this 1903 experience many times as a key factor in his determination to break baseball's color ban and sign Jackie Robinson and other black players. Acceptance and empathy. As a young college student, Rickey traveled around Ohio giving dry speeches in his support of prohibition. In one such trip, he came to a town where all the hotel owners refused him lodging because of these speeches. This humiliation taught him a valuable lesson and could be one reason he could relate and emphasize with Charles Thomas. Branch Rickey came from humble beginnings and worked his way through college. He often felt himself an outsider because he did not have nice clothes or even a high school education like his other classmates. The same could be said about Jackie Robinson. Both men started from humble beginnings and grew into servant leaders. Branch Rickey thought it was wrong to deny equal rights to people of color in this country, and this angered many white owners in baseball. Not caring what those owners thought, he vowed he would challenge Jim Crow when he could. After he left the St. Louis Cardinals and went to the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1943, he orchestrated a meeting at the New York Athletic Club with the owners of the Dodgers. He talked about his long-term goals. At this time, World War II was in full swing. America was fighting a bitter war to end racism in Europe, while Jim Crow laws were still prevalent in the American South. All able-bodied men were in the military, leaving a shortage of ball players. It was Ricky's idea to have scouts look at 15 and 16-year-old boys to sign. Then Ricky went one step further, stating that if the mass scouting might possibly come up with a Negro player or two, he wouldn't object to that. George Laughlin, one of the owners of the Dodgers, interjected, "If you could come up with a man who's better than all the others, use him." The other Brooklyn club owners didn't know that Laughlin and Ricky had this whole conversation already planned out. Ricky said, "A Negro player or two will not only help the Brooklyn Dodger organization, but put colored players in the major leagues. It will also accomplish something that's long overdue. It is something I have thought about and believed in for a long time." Ricky not only wanted to heal baseball, but the country. Exhibiting the character of a true servant leader, he once said, "I don't like silent men when personal liberty is at stake." Awareness and perception. In 1900, at the age of 18 years of age, Branch Rickey left home to attend college at Ohio Wesleyan University. Ricky arrived with only the suit he wore and his baseball uniform in a bag. He was so poor that he went through his freshman year with only one pair of pants. Ricky worked, played sports, and threw himself into other school activities. However, Ricky was fully aware that he didn't fit in with the other students who were prep school graduates. He was out of his league, but that didn't stop him. He finished college and graduated in 3 years. Because Branch Rickey grew up even poorer than Jackie Robinson, he understood what it felt like not to fit in and how others perceived him. This helped shape Branch Rickey into a servant leader. He truly understood how it felt to be less fortunate. Ricky, like Jackie Robinson, started life on the outside looking in. Robinson once told a reporter, "Anybody who says I can't make it doesn't know what I've gone through and what I'm prepared to go through to stay up in the major leagues." In the late 1940s through 1957, Jackie Robinson was the hero to everyone who grew up in Brooklyn. Black or white, boys or girls, Jackie was their guy. I met one of these kids, Donald A. Stratton, in Blanco, Illinois. He was 9 years old in 1947 and loved his Dodgers. Doris Curtin Goodwin also said that Jackie Robinson was her hero. She states that it was not until much later that she truly understood the significance of what Robinson achieved in 1947 as the pioneer of the Civil Rights Movement. She points out that after Robinson broke the color barrier in baseball, nothing was ever the same in sports or in the country. Jackie Robinson took his place in history as one of the first civil rights leaders who promoted nonviolence. Instead of violence, Robinson used sportsmanship. He took his responsibilities seriously. He was fully aware that he was making history for his people, and he would not let them down. Jackie Robinson was a servant leader before he ever put on a Brooklyn Dodger uniform. Ricky chose Robinson for his character and convictions. Persuasion. To break the color barrier, Branch Rickey needed to find just the right man who would withstand the pressures of being the first African American to play in the modern era. Rickey needed to convince the country that this was the right thing to do for everyone in America, which is why he went to both business and religious leaders in the African American community for their support before he would announce that he signed Jackie Robinson. Rickey asked African American community leaders to encourage their people to come to the ballpark dressed in their best clothes and be on their best behavior. He stressed that if someone would make any racist remarks in the stands, they should just let it go. Ricky emphasized for the greater good, everyone needed to be behind Robinson. Ricky stressed that it was important not to create any problems off the field in order that Robinson succeed on the field. The African American community listened. Building community. Jackie Robinson's first game as a Dodger was on April 15, 1947 in Ebbets Field, New York. It was in front of a record crowd of 26,623. Everyone came to see the player to break the color barrier. During an early season game at Ebbets Field, Robinson experienced some harsh racial abuse from the Phillies manager Ben Chapman. Chapman and others poured out a string of unconscionable racist abuse which helped unify 29 men on the Dodgers behind Robinson. Not one Dodger was willing to witness someone kick a man who had his hands tied behind his back. Unknowingly, Chapman created sympathy on Robinson's behalf. Sympathy may be the most unifying word in the world. Its Greek origins means to suffer. To say I sympathize with you means to say I suffer with you. Chapman caused men like Eddie Stanky to stick up for Robinson in the face of verbal abuse and made Robinson a real member of the Dodger team. Stanky and other Dodgers suffered along with Robinson. Another key team-building event happened when Pee Wee Reese, the Kentucky-born Dodger captain, placed his arm around the shoulder of Robinson early in the 1947 season during a game with the Cincinnati Reds. This gesture of friendship has been interpreted as a symbol of Jackie's acceptance. Reese and Robinson were great friends on and off the field. Reese once said, "I put myself in Jackie's shoes. I think of what it must have been like for him. I think of myself trying to make it an all-black league. I know I couldn't do it." Conceptualization. Branch Rickey was a dreamer. His biographer, Arthur Mann, described him as a visionary with pioneering ideas, a family man with high regards for the truth, and a stubborn person who refused compromise. Rickey created the modern-day minor league farm system when he was the business manager of the St. Louis Browns and the president of the St. Louis Cardinals. He created the six-step plan for integration of baseball. The first 5 steps I've already discussed. In January 1943, Rickey set his plan in motion. The 6th step was the key to the success of Rickey's plan. He needed to have the Dodger organization accept an African-American player. Rickey prepared the Dodger organization by first speaking with the manager of the Montreal Royals, Clay Hopper. Montreal, Canada is where Rickey began the integration process. The Royals were a minor league affiliate of the Dodgers, and Montreal was a more open-minded people for people of color. Rickey wanted the first African-American player to integrate baseball in a city that would accept him. The International League played mostly in major North American cities. This was the initial step before Rickey would potentially bring an African-American to Brooklyn. Rickey had other concerns too. He sought advice to figure out what to do with many issues, such as spring training, which would have to be moved out of Jim Crow, Florida to Cuba. Rickey was concerned about team dynamics. He tried to prepare for everything and anything by researching every aspect of Robinson's life. When Clyde Seaforth, the chief scout of the Dodgers, found Robinson, he was playing for the Kansas City Monarchs of the Negro League. Seaforth told Robinson that Branch Rickey of the Brooklyn Dodgers was scouting him for a new Negro League. Rickey wanted Robinson for the new Brown Dodgers. This was the cover story that Branch Rickey devised to mask the true reasons his scouts were looking and talking to African-American players. Jackie Robinson and Branch Rickey had their first meeting on August 28, 1945 in Rickey's office in Brooklyn, New York. Rickey knew based on the scouting reports that Robinson could run, throw, and hit for power. The true test of Robinson was not his skill as a ball player, but more importantly, his character, personality, background, intelligence, and a desire to succeed. Unlike most of the Negro League players of his day, Jackie Robinson was college educated. He went to Pasadena City College and was later a four-letterman at UCLA. Robinson was lieutenant in the U.S. Army. He was a morale officer at Fort Riley. Robinson phoned his provost marshal, Major Hefner, to voice his complaint about segregation at the PX. Robinson was told nothing could be done, and then Hefner said, "Let me put you this way, how would you like your wife to sit next to a nigger?" Robinson was extremely upset, and only then did Major Hefner realize that Lieutenant Robinson was a person of color. Robinson was transferred shortly after that incident. Robinson was a servant leader long before he met Branch Rickey. Second Lieutenant Robinson refused to give up a seat and go to the back of a military bus. Robinson stood up for others and himself, and this eventually led to his court-martial and honorary discharge. Branch Rickey already knew these things about Robinson, but needed to hear it for himself. Rickey was a family man and knew the importance of having someone to come home to for support, and encouraged all of his players to get married. If Robinson was going to be the first African American to play in the modern era, he would need the support of a good woman. So the first question Branch Rickey asked him, "Do you have a girl?" Robinson was thrown by this question. After he signed his contract, he went home and proposed to his girlfriend Rachel. On February 10, 1946, they were married. Rickey told Robinson that he could not react to any physical or verbal abuse, and he had to be strong enough to turn the other cheek. Robinson told him he had another cheek. Even though Rickey signed Robinson on that first meeting, it was not until October 23rd of 1945 that it was announced. Rickey wanted to prepare the community of Brooklyn and Major League Baseball. He was a true visionary with a great servant leader because he always thought of the big picture as well as individuals. Foresight. Rickey admired President Abraham Lincoln. He had a photograph of him on his office wall. He knew that segregation was wrong in and out of baseball. He also knew that he needed to expand the pool of available talent during World War II, and that there was great talent in the Negro Leagues.